Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be learning a little more about the Ranger class. I don't even know if I really should be doing this because the Ranger class is extremely strong, and I'm sure most of you would agree with me that getting mowed down by a longbow quick shot can be frustrating. I will just say originally the whole reason why I started recording Dark and Darker content was because of the Ranger class. And not because of what you may think, but simply because I thought it was so hilarious how effective traps were. And how funny it was to trap someone and then headshot them with the windlass crossbow. You can just see the defeated look in their eyes when they can't find the trap under their feet. Unfortunately for me, and for you guys, most of this gameplay was before I started pressing the record button. But I appreciate you all for being here, and there's still a lot of stuff I want to discuss. So, in this video today I'm going to discuss some of my general pros and cons. I think overall, a lot of the pros certainly outweigh the cons for this class. Then I'll get into the perks and abilities where I think you have the most room for customization within the Ranger class. To round out this video, we're also going to be discussing some of the gear options and some weapon choices you should be making. Without further delay, let's get into the pros and cons. It's simply an incredibly strong class. It is actually the most played class, or most represented class on the top 200. And when it comes to overall score for PvE, I think it's one of the best, simply because they clear mobs so effectively well, and they kill bosses so easily. So if you're considering using the Ranger class, just know it may see some changes, but at its current state, it is just simply perfection if you're looking for a class that demands some skill, but has a really high output of damage if you use it properly. It's also a class that's just overall got some really strong abilities. I wouldn't really say this is me being skilled. I simply just ran away from the barbarian and waited for my cooldown. Like I said, the pros certainly outweigh the cons for the Ranger class. There's just not a lot of stuff that's holding this class back. For pros, I think especially, obviously, it's a Ranger class, and your biggest pro is that you have the ability to deal incredible amounts of range damage, and not just in PvP, but also this is probably the strongest class in the game for PvE. I've never really played enough of the cleric class and put the two against each other, but if you look at the leaderboards for boss kills, it's mostly Ranger class, specifically because they have the ability to deal damage at a distance, and a lot of damage. Now, you also have incredibly strong abilities and perks. I mean, one of the perks increases your headshot damage by 15%, which is just absurd when you start using longbows, and the abilities you have. Quick shot being probably everyone's favorite and most broken skill maybe right now. A lot of people would probably agree that it's just maybe a little too strong. It gives you a free reload, so if you're at 0 arrows or 1 of 6, you pop quick shot, spam your 3 arrows, and you still have some left over. Now, one thing I believe a lot of people are sleeping on when it comes to the Ranger class is that multi-shot is almost equally as good as quick shot. Multi-shot is when you shoot the flat kind of line of 5 arrows. But at times, when they're close enough, you can land 3 arrows on them within, that half a second it takes you to spam the ability. So if they make any changes to quick shot, they almost have to make changes to multi-shot, because I think both those abilities just deal such crazy amount of damage so quickly. Now, the last one on this list, field ration, is actually, it's insane. I mean, you get 75 HP over the 3 uses. If you try to compare field ration to Second Wind being probably one of the best fighter class abilities. Second Wind heals 50% of your HP, and you're sitting at around 100, so you get a 50 HP heal once. Field ration, you can pop it just before a fight if you want to top up. You can pop it mid-fight if you have the time. The only real difference is that you can't just hit it and forget it. It does take a little bit of time to use. But you get more healing overall than you probably would on a fighter class. And it's just crazy how they have that ability to stay alive on top of deal crazy good damage from range. Alright, so it keeps getting crazier, because without even mentioning these next couple things, the Ranger class is already incredible. However, they also give you the option to run one of the best weapons in the game, which is the spear. And not only that, I think they give you bonus physical power when you choose that perk. So you have crazy good movement speed, crazy good range damage. You can take a spear, which is one of the best, I think, PvP weapons in the game. And that's still not it. For some reason, you're also given one of the best starter kits in Dark and Darker. Literally, you have traps, which are incredibly effective. You can place a whole bunch of them wherever you want, baiting people into them, and basically it's a free kill. And then you get a campfire. If you do take some damage early on, you have a free campfire every time you do a run. Yeah, on top of all those abilities and the gear you have options to, the Ranger class is simply incredible. And I wouldn't be surprised if many would argue that it's probably a little broken. Because when you start looking at the cons, there's really not a lot of stuff that makes the Ranger class that difficult. It does have a higher skill ceiling, which means basically, yeah, you need to land your shots. If you're getting rushed by Barbarian and you're not tagging him with arrows, he's going to destroy you with that felling axe pretty quickly. Alright, so now let's move on to perks and abilities. One thing I will say about the Ranger class, which I think was kind of unique when I used it, you could almost find a way to make all these perks useful. Obviously, yeah, the 15% headshot damage is great. The 50% bow redraw animation, which makes it a faster shooting speed, basically. Yeah, they're really, really awesome. But you kind of have so many options with those final two. And I think it's one of the probably most fun things about using the Ranger class is you can kind of experiment with a lot of these. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the abilities, but basically the ones in red are always great. And the ones in blue are situational. Ones that don't have a color are just not useful at all. I did try quickfire. I never really found what it does or what its use is for. And True Shot is only ever used basically if you're running the crossbow perk. Crossbow mastery, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. The standard crossbow that's not the windlass is actually okay. It's actually a decent bow, which I always use on the fighter class because you can shoot and move and jump, and actually you can jump obstacles and shoot over them with the crossbow, which is kind of neat. So feel free to mix these up as you want. I actually take Trap Expert because I love traps, but I honestly think you can't go wrong with any of them. Okay, so one of the last things I want to talk about is gear and weapons. I'm going to kind of lump these two categories together because I don't actually think there's a whole lot of options with the armor and gear that makes any significant difference really with the Ranger class. Other classes have maybe a few more options, at least the fighter class does in my last video. And some of the weapon choices with Rangers is pretty limited. So my thoughts on the gear are basically take whatever you want. I don't think it's going to hurt you too much at all taking something that's a little heavier, something that's a little lighter. It doesn't really matter too much on the Ranger. You have crazy speed regardless. And most of the things you can wear actually increase your agility more. So I never found a situation where me wearing a Gambusman or a Marauder's outfit or something a little heavier ever made that much difference. I would just take whatever has the best armor and the best stats on it, whether it be green or blue or purple. Just take those things. You'll be fine. Yeah, I once in a while would run the rugged leather boots instead for a little bit more movement speed, but generally I didn't find it made a huge difference. But if there's armor and stuff that you guys are using that you think is crucial, just let me know in the comments. Okay, so lastly, we have weapons. Now, this is also a very easy category. I mean, they've already made one major nerf to what I would consider the best weapon in the game. I think it's actually the most sold weapon in the game and most used weapon in the game. Maybe because also fighter class can use it if they take that bow perk, but essentially the longbow is your choice. And unless they make changes to multi-shot and quick shot, you want to be using multi-shot to put out the highest damage possible in the quickest amount of time, and that's always going to be with the longbow. The recurve bow is good if you find them, and you can find decent ones, and they're really fine to use. I really like the recurve bow, but every time I found a longbow, I would always run it instead. Especially even with multi-shot, if you're doing that 5-arrow fan and you're hitting them with 3 arrows, it's always better to be hitting them with 3 higher damage arrows coming from a longbow. It's just simply irreplaceable. Yeah, the survival bow, it shoots quicker. You can move faster with it, but doing like peanuts for damage each shot is very frustrating. Even I've tried really good ones like blue ones out, and I just found they were just awful. So, yeah, longbow, then recurve bow, and then survival bow. And then somewhere in that mix I would put the standard crossbow, not the windlass, because I actually don't mind it, and it kind of offers a unique ability to move around while using it. Also, I guess I should say that some people have been running longbow and windlass. So what they've been doing is they'll actually just use their longbow like a standard bow, and then when they want a high chunk of damage, maybe they've caught someone in a trap, run the windlass, and they'll hit them for like 90 or 100 damage headshot or something crazy. So that can be fun, and it's something to consider. But I haven't tried it enough to really tell you whether or not it's that beneficial. I always found, like I said, the spear is probably your best option for that secondary weapon unless you have teammates protecting you, which maybe some of these guys do. The option I most often went with was arming sword, simply because they were cheaper, easier to find. Plus, I had a real appreciation for the arming sword after playing fighter class so much. I think the arming sword is pretty underrated in terms of its ability to headshot people and the speed at which you can swing. Overall, I think the Ranger class is one of the highest damage output classes in the game. Just consistent damage across the board, from across the rooms. You know what I mean? Like, it is exceptionally good at dealing damage to everything. PvE, PvP, you name it. They excel at it. And if you're good at landing those shots, it becomes one of the more difficult classes in the game to face. And I sometimes pity the people that get stuck on those traps and just get spammed with arrows in the head, because actually those traps at times can be broken. And I've actually had situations where I've stepped in my own trap and I was stuck in it forever, eternity. There was no way to get out of it. So the traps definitely have a few bugs when it comes to how easy they are to get out of, because they just damage you over time, and you have to crouch and look at the ground, spot this trap in the dark, and try to get out of it. It's ridiculous. So, once again, thank you all for watching this video. I appreciate any of your feedback on what you think is the positives or negatives, or things you think maybe should be changed with the Ranger class. I have a feeling there'll likely be some changes with the Ranger class, and I hope on February 6th I get the opportunity to record and discuss more of this stuff with you guys. So once again, thank you all. I appreciate it, and I'd love to hear your feedback on your thoughts on the Ranger class. Cheers.